Hello there. I'm just going to look in this video at how you can actually make your designs smooth on the surface. We can do that in Fluid Designer by using Subdivide and Smooth or the Subsurf modifier. So it's about the quality of the surface finish of your finalized object. If I just shut the screen down there, I'm going to I'm not going to use curves in this one, I'm going to use meshes. If I add an icosphere mesh and just zoom in, you can see it's quite chunky. And if I press the, let me just open up the properties panel, let's just start the screencast keys. If I press the tab key on the keyboard, you can see I can go into edit mode and you can see the faces on this object. Now if I open up the toolbox panel, the bit that I was looking for has disappeared because I went into edit mode there, so I'm just going to delete that object and just add the same object again. So it's an icosphere. I say when I press the tab key, this panel disappears. If you look here, we've got subdivisions too. If I increase this value, can you see that the meshes is increasing quite dramatically? And if we look up in the top of the screen here, in the menu bar, you can see the faces is 20,000 approximately. And if I just take it back down to 2 again, it starts off with 80 faces, 320, that's 4 times as many, so it's breaking each face into 4 parts, so now 1,200. So as you can see, the object itself will smooth out as I increase this subdivisions value here. So if you want a chunky object like that, that's fine. If you want a nice smooth surface, you can increase the subdivisions and get a perfect sphere basically. Okay, so that's the icosphere. If I just press X on the keyboard and delete that object, if I try adding a different sphere, a UV sphere, okay, this has got a slightly different properties panel over here. It's got segments and rings. Well, if I take the rings value right down, you can see what that represents. It's 1, 2, 3, and then 1 underneath. It's 4 rings going around. 4 rings going from top to bottom, and then the segments are the segments going around, as in segments of an orange, for example. So we've got 8 segments here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then another 4 segments at the back. So again, if we increase these values, if we wind these values right up, then the object will become more and more spherical, so that the faces increase, the number of faces. Now there are limits if you want to 3D print at Shapeways. They do restrict you to 1 million faces, so you have got a lot to play with, but depending upon your object and how it's constructed, the face count can be quite high. It is particularly high with the objects that we've created, these curve objects, and we've done that to make them actually smooth. But you do still need to watch out for the total number of faces, and also with some of these objects you may still want to smooth them out yourself. It just depends on what you create. Okay, so we can increase the segments here, or I'm going to actually decrease them, take them back down to approximately where they were. I think this was about 12, something like that. Okay, so you can do that here, but notice when we go into edit mode and come out of edit mode, we can't change that in the toolbox anymore. So is there another way that we can smooth these objects off? Is there a way that we can smooth objects off that we've created using curves? Well, yes, there is. Well, let me just press T on the keyboard to close the toolbox down. And if we look at this object, we've got 240 faces at the moment. If I go into edit mode, and I do need to highlight all of the objects, so it's A on the keyboard to highlight all of the objects, and I can bring up a special menu, and the special menu is brought up by pressing the W key on the keyboard, and you'll see there is a command here to subdivide, and this works in a similar way to what you've just seen in the toolbox panel on the left of the workspace there. And if we click subdivide, every one of these faces will be broken up into 4. So if I press W and subdivide, you'll see that what was one face there is now 4 faces. And if we do W and subdivide, you can see the faces again, and W and subdivide. Now if we look around the edges of this object, it's not actually any particularly smooth, so we've got a lot of faces, but if we press W and select smooth now, if you look around the edges of the screen here, if I do it again, and when I select it, you should see that it is smoothing the object out just around the edges there. So if you do W and smooth several times, then it does smooth out the sphere there. So when we go into edit mode, back to normal mode, you can see that. Now it's not absolutely perfect in this instance because there weren't very many rings and segments to start off with in this. It was quite low, but you can see that I can smooth out the object, and you can just keep going and just keep clicking, and the more you do it, the smoother it will become. Okay, so as you can see, that's much better now. Okay, so sometimes we can use values that are in the toolbox window here to increase the face count and make our objects smoother. Alternatively, you can go into edit mode and use subdivide and smooth. If I just delete that object, however, and if I just add in another UV sphere, so it's still the 12 by 20, and I'm just going to change the shape of this very slightly. If I go into edit mode, and if I just select the one at the top there, the vertices at the top, and if I just try and pull that up, it's not creating quite the shape that I want, so I'm just going to press the O key on the keyboard. O switches on proportional editing, and with proportional editing you can see I get this circle, and the bigger I make the circle, the bigger the proportional editing area. And as you can see, instead of just pulling up a single point at the top, it's pulled up a lot of points at the side there and given me that kind of pear shape. So I press A on the keyboard to deselect that control point, and if I now want to smooth off this object, if I now want to smooth off this object, I could go to W and subdivide and smooth, so the specials menu in other words. So I could go to like that, edit mode, W, I could do subdivide and smooth, subdivide and smooth. That's one way of doing it. But there is an alternative way, and that is we can apply a modifier. So if we go to the properties panel over here and click on the modifiers icon, the modifier that we can use here to smooth off surfaces is the Subsurf modifier. Now this works in a slightly different way from subdivide and smooth, but you can see instantly there, if I just delete it again, you can see it's instantly made some difference to the object. It's smoothed it out, and you can ignore this value at the bottom, render. Render is more to do with creating photorealistic images. We're not interested in doing that, we're interested in 3D printing, so it's this view option that we want. Now if we change this view value, the number of subdivisions to perform, if we change it back to 0, you'll see that that's basically my default object. And so if I click on view 1, you can see it smooths it out. So if I just go back to 0 again, faces was 240, we can see that in the menu bar at the top there. View 1 is 920 faces. View 2, 3,600. And each time you can see it's smoothing it out. We're now up to 14,000 with view 3. 58,000 now, so we really are pushing the number of faces up quite high. 235,000 if we go to view 5. Now 235,000 when this object is only 2 millimeters represents an awful lot of faces. But you know, you can push it that far if you really want to. So the higher this value, the more faces, but the smoother the object is. Now if I press the tab key on the keyboard to go into edit mode, you can see there that I've still got my original 240 faces in edit mode. But we've got this extra line going around the outside there, and that indicates the fact that we've got this Subsurf modifier, but that it hasn't yet been applied. So if I come out of edit mode, I'll just press T on the keyboard to close down the toolbox there. So we've got 14,000 faces there. If we want to apply this Subsurf modifier, we can either click here to apply the modifier, or we can go to Tools, Object Tools and convert it to a mesh. And once we do that, the modifier will disappear, and when we press the tab key this time, we can now see the thousands, what have we got? We've got 14, nearly 15,000 faces in this instance. So you can see how the Subsurf modifier has smoothed out the surface of this object, and so it's not just increased the number of faces, it has made it smooth as well. So you don't need to go to specials menu with the W key and smooth. You don't need to do that. The Subsurf modifier effectively does subdivide and smooth all in one go. It does it in a slightly different way. The word subsurf means that it's working underneath the surface of the object. Does it in a slightly different mathematical way, but it gives you a similar sort of effect. So remember that that object is only really 2 millimeters in size, so you know, in real life it's only like that, very, very small indeed. So yeah, you can make your finish module before you save your finish modules, designs. You can go to Subdivide and Smooth, or you can apply a Subsurf modifier if you want to smooth off the surface of your designs. Okay, yeah, so that's it for this particular video. Thank you.